in for you to start.
We're still not in the quorum.
Right, we don't have a quorum yet.
He might come.
He'll probably come late, but he'll. Okay. Is there a way, I can't make that screen.
How do I narrow it to? So over here, you go to view,
Uh-huh.
I do standard view, because they put them.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, I know. Standard. That's what I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah, candy. Yeah, we have candy and cookies.
Well, I'm not, people say I'm not fine.
And this one.
Okay.
What do you think I'm saying? So
If Angela,
or.
Would show cut 'em.
Have a forum.
right,
Yeah, we can't do
We
that.
can- you have to wait until one of them,
She goes, Angela's cutting in right now.
oh,
We're in.
you see her?
She's joining.
Oh,
Pretty much. Well, you know, leave it, where do you? Okay, this way it doesn't get warm.
okay,
I can mute.
I'm mute. You can start.
Dr. White or?
Me,
Are you nicely?
she's doing it. Is that me? Okay, let's go to audio.
You don't have to read all, you don't have to read all. Okay. Did Angela read?
She was driving, she's on. She was on a vehicle.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And I ordered Coca-Colas.
For Tuesday?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my God.
And wraps and fruit.
Oh, and fruit?
Yeah, and fruit.
Oh, never. All right, we're ready.
Okay.
Good evening. This is the meeting of the Beaufort County Board of Education Academics Committee meeting on October 3rd, 2024, 5 o'clock at the District Educational Service Center, Conference Room E. We also have remote hybrid conference. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You can stand for a minute or
Moment of silence. You see me? She's on. All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Middleton. It's been so moved and approved.
we need to second.
Can I get a second? I will second it. Thank you. We have public comment. We have one by Mr. Jim Miller. Mr. Miller, you have to speak. And your topic.
He needs to come sit
And
there
you
at
come
the
sit at the table so we can hear you and yes. And it's on the suggestions to review Beaufort County School District's ban.
thank you all. You've seen me many times and may again, but I think it's appropriate that the academic committee refer to the entire board two areas of concern, and that is the tenure of band directors, which I've addressed to the entire board before, and the what I'll call less than optimal performance of the bands on a whole. Now, they're all scattered across a spectrum, but I think those two areas need to be formally addressed. When I go think about the tenure, I've said before that in the last 2 years, this year and last, 2/3 to 3/4 of the positions have been vacant and had to be filled. At this point, there are of the vacancies created this year, there are 2 that half have not been filled. In addition, kind of away from the area of band, but string or string instruments for a year and a half. This academic year, all last academic year and the prior, there was not a string instructor at Hilton Head High. That is vacant. The band director this year doesn't really have a band. He was asked to kind of combine those classes together. With respect to what I'll call the less than optimal performance compared to other districts in the area, recall I mentioned one award called the Outstanding Performer Award. Out of any one year, about 1/4 of the bands in the state achieve that award. That award goes back for 50 years. Out of all of our schools, only once in 50 years has a school achieved that award. With that, I'll just say one more time, I think these areas need to be addressed. Thank you much for your time.
Oh. All right. We need approval of the July 17th, 2024 minutes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
I second. So it's been moved and second for the approval of the July 17th.
Did all or any changes? All in favor?
I don't see them. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Aye. We need to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Middleton, aye.
Gordon, aye. It's been moved and approved. Thank you, Ms. Robin. I appreciate you. Now we go to administrative regulations with Dr. Stratus and her team. Dr. Stratus, we'll start with the SS3 assignment of students to school.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. And board members and guests, thank you for joining us this evening. I'd like to introduce Latasha Middleton. She is our Director for School Counselors. She plays multiple roles, and I have to share that. She is shared with my division. She housed in student services. Both these administrative regulations coming forward are out of student services. I think one item that is key on SS3, and we'll hear Ms. Middleton make reference of, that if the students assigned to schools through choice, there's now a very definitive process within this administrative regulation as to what a school must go through should we find out that Mary is not being up to par. So with that, I do want to take this opportunity to turn the floor over to Ms. Middleton.
Good evening. I want to highlight some of the changes that we made to SS3. The first is section 2, with the addition of the non-discrimination clause to ensure equal opportunities for all students. In section 16, subsection D, addition of district school choice committee to review principal's recommendations to revoke the school choice approval and return the students to his or her residential school. Subsection E, updated guidance on when a principal can recommend a student to be reassigned to his or her school. For middle and high schools, principals must notify the committee, the parent or legal guardian in writing before December 1st. If a student is being recommended for reassignment to his or her residential school for the following semester, they must notify the parent by May 1st for the following year. For elementary schools, beginning with the second quarter, principals must notify the committee and the parent or legal guardian if a student is being reassigned to his or her residential school as follows. Third quarter, December 1st. Fourth quarter, March 1st. Following school year, May 1st. So those are the changes for SS3.
So just as a footnote, that we're referencing Roman numeral 16, and those were alpha, D, and E, which were added into the administrative regulation. We want consistency.
Okay, thank you for that. But when you say committee, who makes up the committee?
The committee is made up of parts of student services and other directors or officers in district.
So do they know they're on this committee?
Yes.
Or you just randomly?
No, they know. They know.
And it's managed through our deputy.
Yes.
This now falls under our deputy superintendent, Dr. Lee. It is seeking to put in an MTSS model,
Okay.
right, to show what interventions have been put in place. It just can't be, no, Mary's not here. Well, what are the interventions that have been put in place to have the committee put together in order to bring forward your data points? And obviously, that's a different fraction of its expulsion, infraction that's, expulsion and other items like that. That would probably be an automatic conversation within the committee.
Thank you.
Yes, maybe.
Okay.
Next.
Yes, Angela has questions or Earl has questions.
Okay.
Does the committee have any questions, or Mr. Campbell, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
You're welcome. Milton? Any questions?
Okay. So the next is administrative regulation SS60, home visits. This is a new AR to address home visits by BCSD staff. Home visits are meant to enhance communication between parents, legal guardians, and educators, and are also an effective strategy in engaging students and families to strengthen relationships and support academic progress. The AR does not include home visits that are conducted as part of the early learning parents as education or educating program. The home visits for residency checks must be approved by the student services officer. All other home visits, if deemed appropriate, must be approved by the building principal. Home visits shall not be done alone. So there should be at least 2 people on that team. It could be the principal, the SRO, the school counselor, the school social worker, the bilingual liaison. But it must include the coordinator of protective services or the director of protective services. The BCSD staff must be accompanied by, as I stated earlier, the coordinator of protective services or the director. Just to ensure safety of our staff.
Ms. Middleton, do you have a question? Mr. Campbell, do you have?
No, I don't. No, I don't. Thank you.
So,
Mhm.
I'm happy to hear that two people must attend, must be present, and I'm glad to hear some of, staff members that can go. You just can't pop up on a parent or pull a child out of bed, because you don't do that. But, I'm happy to hear that this is in place. Thank you. All right. No questions? Can you continue, please?
Yes, ma'am, and thank you. Mrs. Middleton, please feel free to remain with us while we have about obligations. Thank you. Well, for that, and I will share a document with you.
It is a document.
Yes, we have to share it, or she must.
I've color coded, added pages.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
All right. And for the edification of those of you online, what we have is a presentation of operational expectation 12. It consists of 17 components. In the room, I actually have additional evidence to practice should there be more questioning, but I'd like to draw your attention to the table of contents and also bring to your attention that because it's such a large document, and I mean with the greatest respect, pages have to be repaginated. I'm having it, actually it's already been done, and this will be the document that will be going to the board, and I'll be putting it in a binder. It'll have separate petitions, so it'll be much easier for the board doing your committee to have a point of reference when I do committee update then. So we can take a look at the table of content first. You'll notice that it starts with the interpretation of the monitoring indicators. It'll give you what the policy is. It's going to tell you superintendent's interpretation. So I want us to turn, and you can see I have each operational expectation broken down by page number for you. If we look at page 3, I just want to walk you through the format. And if you can keep your table of contents facing you, so it'll be an easier referencing going back and forth, or you can look at the tabs on the side. The policy for OE 12 is that the superintendent shall maintain a program of instruction that offers challenging, relevant opportunities for all students to achieve at levels defined in the board's policies. What you have is the superintendent's interpretation of that component of the policy. And if we turn the page to OE1, and you see that under Roman numeral 2, where it says operational expectations. I started with Alpha A, where that's going to tell you what the subcomponent of the OE is. So at this point, we're looking at 12.1. Ensure that instructional programs are based on comprehensive and objective review of best practice research. Thank you, Mrs. Cushenberry. You have the superintendent's interpretation of that subsection. I gave you narrative in with regard to indicators of compliance that would be at Alpha C for this section. And that narrative continues until you get to Alpha D, which is on page 7, where I actually give you examples of our work in support of evidence-based instructional practices. So that you will see evidence in here of what has been done from the 23-24 academic school year. I'll take a little more time to walk through this section of the OE, so that as you go through this on your own, you'll understand what I provided you. In this case, I shared with you the instructional framework. Then I shared with you page 8. Actually, the instructional framework with supportive resources. This document, I'll hold it up. This table of content is all hyperlinked. So our teachers are actually able to go directly to these sites within the mother document. And you can see that this document is 82 pages. Obviously, I didn't include it here, but I wanted to give you some examples of. It meets ADA compliance for public documents by having those hyperlinks as well. So I didn't know I was ahead of you. Okay. You will see also what I wanted to make note, because we had spoken in the past regarding the crosswalk that we have a component. that we did a crosswalk that showed 4.0 rubric, which you're very familiar with, both yourself and Ms. Middleton, Madam Chair, and how that aligns to the design elements of our instructional framework. And when you see design elements, those are the strategies that fall within the design areas. And I wanted you to have examples of that, and that actually goes to page 11. Because that was a year and a half of work for the division. We have already rolled out trainings to our coaches, trainings to principals. They are continuing through this year, and we have ran parallel training to our instructional coaches, including our district mentors. So now we have a multi-layered model in place. So our research practice is backed up through top educators, but also our rollout is backed up by research of best practice of having multiple divisions in the district involved. If you look at page 12, that's where you have your tab on the side, that's where OE2 starts. And that's why I asked you to keep your table of contents out. So you could see that OE2 is base instruction on academic standards that meet or exceed and or nationally recognized models. Again, as you go through the narrative, on Alpha B, it gives you what the superintendent's interpretation is. But Alpha C starts sharing with you, what do we do here at Beaufort County Instructional? Again, as you turn out an OE2, I give you narrative of indicators, Cambridge, International Baccalaureate, IB programs, our dual enrollment, our partnerships that we have this academic school with TCL, right? So we're creating more and more opportunities for our students, including virtual programs. But right now we're managing approximately 320 students who would be attending school someplace else. Yes, ma'am.
Can you ask who's on the iPhone? QC669.
May I please?
It's
Hi.
me,
Who's me?
Angela.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, Angela.
Hi, Angela.
I do apologize, Mrs. Middleton.
No,
So
you're fine.
part of the evidence I also shared in here is showing you part of our instructional resources. We have a whole catalog that is updated annually. And I thought it was important that you see this as well. So we have instructional programs. We have full access to programs for our teachers for software, and further this document, I actually give you more pages of it because I want you to know that we've actually taken these software and broken it down into a table of best practice, expected amount of time, utilization, grade level, and a hyperlink once again for our teachers. Again, point of reference to your table of contents, so you can look at page 15. 12.3, align the curriculum with South Carolina standards. But we are held by law. And I think that's the easiest way of putting it forward. We are held by law. And even to our local board approved, and you'll see that language being brought in the superintendent's interpretation. Indicators of compliance goes from syllabi, standard-based pacing, state accountability, key performance indicators, to build into the fact that the state has done a phenomenal academic school year with test blueprints that we have aligned for our teachers, where the units in Rubicon, which is our repository of instructional lessons, that you can have access to, I'll just use dividing fractions, and hyperlinks to those units for you as a teacher. So you can look at the test blueprint and go directly to your instructional units that you need for lesson plans. The following pages also shows you how we stick to the legislation of our textbook adoption, because that is part of this language. And I'm giving you examples of what we did this past year, because as we shared with you at the board, Madam Chair, HMH with this Holcomb Michelin is our adoption for elementary, and status ELA is our adoption for secondary. And you'll see that example right here. And I don't want to push you through all of these. I just want to give you a few examples. So 12.4, effectively measure each student's progress towards achieving or exceeding standards. If we look at Alpha C on page 12, we give a testing calendar. We meet the requirements this past year. We utilize math for secondary, iReady for elementary, and we are aligned with the state proviso of the 3 diagnostic tests that are required by law. Okay, and why? So we have benchmarks of knowing how our children are moving from fall to winter to spring. If you see on page 12, I start with evidence of practice for you. And I want you to also note at the top of page 12, we'll make mention that as of 2024-2025, for secondary, we're using Mastery Connect's diagnostic tests. It is state approved. I do want everyone to recognize that we are required to use state approved diagnostic publishers. We just can't say, hey, we're going to use this. No, it has to be from a state approved list. And the evidence of practice continues in that area up until you get to page 31 for OE4. So you can see the trend at the design of the document you have in front of you. And then I want to just pause to say, maybe is there a specific area that you want me to go make reference to from the OE, one in specific that may interest you that you want me to walk through? Because there are 17 components. But you can see we have an abundance of, I wish Mrs. Middleton was here as I'm pointing to it.
Me too.
All right. I brought more, Ms. Middleton. We have abundance of evidence in support of what the commission does. I have to share that many of you are already familiar with, we do take our to. And so if I have any questions on this document at this time, I'm very open to walk through. Well, if I can share with you that OE5 probably has our highest amount of evidence because we really put a lot of work to ensure that the instructional programs include opportunities for students to develop talents and interests. We have provided you from our arts to our AIMS program, to our SISA camp, to our CTE. That's why you have such a large amount of information in this area. I wanted you to see what we have done in service to our community. The next OE would be number 6, and that's on page 69. This OE focuses upon learning styles and learning modalities. Again, we utilize CTE, but I also want you to recognize we have special education listed in here, evidence, multilingual programs listed in here, gifted and talented programs listed here as well, because different modalities. And the work that we do within these service delivery models are all evidence-based, because when you hear me use language EBI, evidence-based instruction, that is state and federal guidance for your help too. So 6 gives you evidence. And I want to jump to the innovative programs. This has been, and also correlated with number 10, a great area for us of how we have grown as a system. The integration of project-based learning, the integration of our MedTech grant, our integration of the DODEA grant, which has focused upon computational practice and integrating more computational science or computer science at the lower grade level to our students, as well as our Gen Cyber and bringing coding during the academic school year of developing teachers. And we have ran 3 summers of Gen Cyber coding camps for our children as well. Yeah, it's been a little busy. Latasha keeps me busy. And if I can, which you won't see in here, but I do want to brag on because of innovative programs. Ms. Middleton has been very generous with her time in helping to spear the PSAT training that will be hosted for our middle schools, where we'll be able to obtain a contract of service with an expert in the field. And the goal of that training is actually for building a larger pool of national merit scholars. Because you do know that our PSAT testing now is for open for all students. You do eighth grade, you do not have to pay as a parent. You may opt out,
Okay.
okay? But if you want your child to sit at PSAT now, you may. And we are providing a training program for the students. Is it on the 15th?
14 and 15.
Right, so that to me, you'll see more of that next year, but I had to take advantage of it because it's brand new for us as well. Right, OE8 is we ensure that all instructional programs include both content and practice are regularly evaluated and modified as necessary. Let's talk about CTE on this one. Our CTE programs are held by law to align to workforce development. We are required annually through the Perkins Grant to conduct a full, thorough analysis of our programs that are career technical education and how they align to the workforce. That is part of the grant that we must submit each year. So that was an area of focus in this year that I wanted to share with you because I haven't used that with you in the past. I will share with you that we've also conducted internally and review of iReady to see if we are in support to what they promote curriculum associates on their white paper, and we are 100% in line with practice. OE 12.9 talks about instructional time. I give you here a reference of the administrative law. Okay, and taking the opportunity to look at what are we doing for our students? And you look at page, and technically it's going to be page 91, it's a grid. I wanted to share with you that we have been conducting also master board analysis. So as we're focusing the instructional time for our students, we also have that focus looking at who are within the courses. So this spreadsheet that you have in front, I know it's rather small. I want you to recognize that the analysis goes that we look at the proportion of students by ethnicity and special program, and then look at your accelerated courses to see if we're meeting alignment of population. OE 10, you're all very familiar with. Focus is on the calendar. And I'll leave that topic alone for right now. And I want to say thank you to the board that you did approve 2 consecutive years. So what I will bring in spring to you would be the pieces today, 26, 27. Scary, all right? 12.11 talks about textbooks. This committee is very much involved with textbook adoption. It comes from this committee over to after you for board recommendation. What I have in here is the evidence to show the process that we take. From career technical education courses. And I reference in here that you had some of that information in OE3, so I didn't give you the same document twice, okay? 12.12 talks about evaluating materials and textbooks and maintain a procedure for reviewing. Again, our alignment to our administrative regulation 36, which is to also tied to the state regulation 38.1. And then I shared with you part of an administrative regulation, and I made reference once again, the subpart 12.3 gave you everything on textbooks. So I didn't want to repeat documents for you. In this, though, we did share 38.1, which is about library book materials. So that part of the administration regulation, I wanted to see what you can see a hard copy of what it looks like when parents look at it. Okay. It also goes into the library request materials, district textbook verification forms. And we keep the data on all of these documents. On 12.13, it talks about software utilization. I will share, and some of you are very familiar with ClassLink, right? Our single sign-on. Every principal including myself, we all have access to review every software utilization, that we could drill down into a classroom to monitor, yes, to monitor how much time and are we in best practice or not. That's why it's very important that I added in here the virtual learning guide that gives teachers and school administrators the profile of what the purpose of the software is and what is the best practice. So again, this is a larger area of evidence, but it provided you a little more detail on that manual. Next item talks about student parents and input. I wanted to share with you our metrics. We are held by federal law. Annually, we conduct surveys. Any federal grant that is received, there must be survey input from teachers, students, and parents. Some of you familiar with that, we know Child Left Behind bill. That's what actually was impetus this type of practice. So we have evidence of our med tech. It gives you input. The teacher efficacy of practice, parental involvement. This is conducted twice a year at the end of each year with a comparative analysis. Setting our goals, and I gave you an example as well on our survey from our coaches. Every PD we conducted a survey as well, even to our principal meetings, so we could try to improve our practice. 12.15, ensure teachers participate in collaborative learning communities. You should be experts at this part of professional learning communities for me. And in here, again, we use some CTE examples on roadmap work because I presented to you the PLC guidelines already, so I chose not to give all that to you. Coaches meetings, developing that med tech meetings,
Now, when you say coaches, you're talking about.
instructional coaches. Yes, I do. Thank you for the clarity. I do apologize.
No, it's okay.
12.16, engage families in meaningful ways in their children's education and keep them informed of their learning progress. Part of that is progress reports, that part of that is grades, that is a requirement for us. And this is where the numbers, page numbers got messed up, and I do apologize. Somehow it got thrown off from my state documents. That's why I had to tab this view into OE 16, so I do apologize. Pittsburgh. And I wanted you to recognize, I put in here our grading policy. I thought that was an important document for you to have. It is a large administrative regulation. It has been updated to the point of, in this administrative regulation, there's specific language and how you cannot penalize a student for language. Or making sure that our students who have an IEP are graded by refined yes on the IEP. And then your last section here refers to the young lady who also see the here at the table, Ms. Middleton, to ensure that our students has access to guidance services that include, but are not limited to, counseling, appraisal, mentoring, staff consultant, referral, and educational and career planning. What I provided for you is a quick summary on the reference of our ratio. I also want to tap for a moment that this young lady has been able to procure this past academic school year for utilization this year is MESA. You want to speak on that a moment?
It's a cloud, is a platform that helps school counselors evaluate transfers. So basically, the student's not on track for graduation, and point that out to the counselor, stating whether or not they're missing a course, they failed something, or they're taking a course they've already taken before. It also, the state has adopted.
We're not doing it the fashion way.
The state has adopted the program as well. So in February, it'll be a totally different program, but it will still be through MESA, where they're able to determine if the student is college or career ready, if they are a distinguished diploma, candidate, all those things. So it will help us just, instead of us sitting here and looking at every transcript, we have a computer program that's gonna do that for us.
Really?
Yes, it is significant. So we look at the computer program, we still have to be dependent only on it.
It's a second pair of eyes, so we will still do what we do, but it won't take us weeks to get it done.
In order to have confirmation of your graduating class.
Yes.
That is at the crux
Yes.
of this work. And your very last page, and so I apologize, gives you some reference to administrative regulations and some of the reference books that was utilized, but it's not been put together. So, Madam Chair, that's a quick summary. It is a reflection of the work of our division for this past academic school year. The one thing I would ask at some point with you, and I may be incorrect when I make this citation, that maybe the policy that you visit OE 12 to consolidate it, because it's repetitious in textbooks. And if that language could be all in one, it would at least take us to 12.14 instead of 12.17. Because if you remember, I said to you, I gave you a lot of the textbooks in 12.3. If we can consolidate two of those other ones into 12.3 or wherever you feel as board members of line, at least it will just bring us from 17 to 14, so we're not being repetitious in practice. That is just a suggestion coming from myself. And at this point, that closes my segment of this evening's presentation.
You'll need a motion to recommend this to go to the full board. This board does have to. approve
Yes.
This OE 12.
We need a recommendation to take this to the full board.
Madam Chair, I recommend that we take all of this information presented today to the full board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I said, thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you and this president and the team for this presentation. I have a lot to read. And I will do them.
But remember, this is last year. We got to read into this year.
Are there any questions from Ms. Middleton or Mr. Smith?
No, ma'am.
All right, so there are no questions. Mr. Campbell, do you have a question?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank Dr. Stratus and Ms. Middleton. I really appreciate it. And
Featured topics.
sorry, I misplaced the sheet. Future topics, are there any future topics?
I don't have any, Madam Chair.
We will be bringing forward two of our ARs that we had on our legal counsel. I know she's been involved with outside. So those two ARs will be coming forward possibly at our next meeting. We are prepared to just,
Can we bring up or look at probably with HR, the band?
yeah, because the tenure component,
Yes.
so the tenure component on my side was that is definitely a conversation with HR.
With HR.
Yes, it is.
So we'll bring it.
So
Yeah.
HR comes.
It's operations.
It's operations, so that we need to, if you're gonna bring it up through HR, our HR comes through operations, so that would be at the operations committee meeting.
Okay, so at the next operational committee meeting, I'll bring it up.
For the element of tenure,
Yeah, because I don't know what their status is.
well, okay, I asked for kind of two things. One was kind of the overview of how the bands, our bands, compare to others in the state. And to me, that isn't HR related.
That was the second component, but there were two components. So I brought first forward the tenure component, because that was on the table. The
Yes,
second component that was brought forward was the performance of bands based upon, and I did write based upon what expertise of practice. I understand we have a document that shows performances of bands within the state, but there's other human elements that are tied with that. So I want to be very cautious when we have a meeting that
Yes,
we're talking about the work of educators, and the same side, we're talking about tenure and retention of educators. We have to be very careful how we navigate it, because it becomes a value to them. I've had that conversation with Mr. Miller once or twice before,
Sounds
so
good to me.
I leave to your purview and up to you as board members, but I just want us to be cautious as we talk about performance, because we start getting to a level that can be interpreted as evaluative.
I agree.
I just want us to be careful on
I
that.
agree. And we will be, so, I'll talk to the committee, this academic committee, and see how they want to go forward.
And I appreciate, I do not want to enter HR kind of areas.
And neither do I.
Nor do we.
And
We
not,
don't go
not
there.
at all, that is not the
Uh,
intent.
but I
But
think
there are a
it's-
couple things you said that can.
and if I've offended anybody at this point, I do apologize. But I do think it's important that we compare our arts, primarily band, because I have volunteered and worked for 10 years with bands throughout the district at county, like county honor band. It's a 2-day event. I've hosted the hospitality, and after 10 years, well, we'll put it this way, 3 years ago, the board voted to create a coordinator of arts. Up to that time, the coordinating function was tied with the social studies coordinator. And with 10 years going back, I attend these things, the band directors say, wish we had a better input to the district. And 3 years ago, a separate coordinator was created for that position, and the board voted on that. And I'm speculating, but I think the band directors went through a honeymoon thinking now we're gonna be heard at the district level. And after a couple of years, then this tenure thing has evolved. That's personal, but that's,
Thank you.
thank you for hearing that.
Our next meeting in November would be scheduled the day before Thanksgiving. So I'm proposing that we move it a week up, which would be November 20th. It's Wednesday, November 20th. To give us back on Wednesdays, is that?
I'm good.
I'm good with that.
Yes, and if I may make a suggestion, since we have a health advisory committee coming up soon.
Health Advisory Committee is on October 21st at 5.
So we could have the first board meeting of November, give a summary of that as well. I just want to bring that to our attention.
Okay.
Okay,
So the board meeting, we wouldn't be meeting on the 5th because that's.
we have a workshop.
No, the 5th is presidential, and so we're off on November 5th.
I made the calendar.
Yes.
I think
So our
we moved
board
that to the
meeting in
12th,
November,
right?
our first board meeting would be on the 12th.
Yeah.
And then we have a work session on the 22nd.
So the 12th, just for us to make note that we can give an update of health advisory at that time.
You may have to remind me.
We will, as we will.
So do we want to meet on the 20th for academics?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, because we've already, November 20th.
Yeah,
November
how about Mrs. Middleton?
That
Is
works for me.
November 20th, okay with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
My dance card is open at that time.
So November 20th is our next
Meeting at
academic
Yes.
5 o'clock. And what is the health advisory?
The health advisory is meeting on October 21st at 5 o'clock.
Oh, that's right, we're just in October. October 20th.
At 5 o'clock.
So may I ask, do we want to add that to this coming board meeting of our last health advisory? So when we do the committee update on the 15th for academics, since we haven't given the HAC update, maybe add it onto that agenda. I would love, I
We
think.
haven't done agenda setting yet, but yeah.
Okay. Because we could ask that committee chair to write a summary. So that if that pleases Madam Chair.
I'm still going over this big document with me, so, yes, that's fine, because they need to be in the loop where we are so far. Is that the last one? I misplaced you.
Yes. Yes, ma'am, that's it.
That's a question. The technical IT people here. If I had a public comment and came to you folks in advance and would like to have a table shown during my 3 minutes, is that feasible?
Can be provided to you.
Mm-mm.
I may do that in the future. I think it may be helpful.
Are there any more questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Campbell?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Since there are no more questions, we can adjourn.
Our unanimous consent.
Our unanimous. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
It's almost 5 minutes.